Welcome back to Be Zen with Brit. I'm your host, Brit Madrid Mogensen, and tonight we are sitting down with a true American hero. Tracy Walder joins us on the show, a former CIA and FBI agent whose life story is nothing short of extraordinary. She's the author of the gripping memoir, The Unexpected Spy, and was recently featured in the hit Netflix documentary, American Manhunt: The Search for Osama Bin Laden. Tonight, we'll hear from Tracy about what it really means to redefine strength and why believing in yourself just might be the most revolutionary act of all. Then, we're turning up the glam with celebrity makeup artist Daniela Bell. She's sharing her go-to tips for keeping your beauty routine fresh in the summer heat. From melt-proof makeup to lashes that look like your own, it's simple, effortless glam that works with the weather, not against it. We have a great show for you tonight, so let's get into it. So we're here with Tracy Walder to talk about her book, The Unexpected Spy, and the #1 trending Netflix documentary that she is featured as a hero in, American Manhunt, all about Osama Bin Laden. So Tracy, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Brit.
Well, I'm so excited to get to talk to you. I love your social media. I found you on Instagram where you share like current events and tips for women and all kinds of things that we just need to know. You keep us informed. And then I was led to your book. And you are just, wow, so inspiring. You really show people that you don't have to follow one mold to become, truly an American hero. That's what you are. So thank you for giving us that full perspective of womanhood.
Well, thank you. I don't see myself as a hero.
Well,
obviously.
we see you as that. So sorry, Tracy.
Just a human. But that's why I wrote my book. To be totally honest with you, was that I was becoming frustrated, not to obviously take away from any of the other books that are out there because I use them to research my own. Yeah. But I was becoming frustrated with like a singular narrative, right, of what CIA officers are supposed to be, do, like those kinds of things. And I thought, well, maybe I should like join this space with a different perspective.
I love that. We need to see, and you talk about in your book, how women really in particular need to see ourselves reflected in these positions of power, in these positions of influence, where we can affect things like legislation or just some of the more important things that I think a lot of women don't always gravitate towards right off the bat. As an adjunct professor of criminal justice at TCU, Tracy, how are you shaping the young minds and what are you seeing in your students that excites you?
That's such a good question. It's so funny because it's so different, right? I'm going to be 47 this year. So when I grew up, they didn't have pop culture like they do today. We didn't have Homeland, Criminal Minds, right? Like those kinds of shows that I think everyone is probably watching.
Yes, guilty.
We didn't have any of those. And so I didn't know that that was a career that I could have. And I think, as you mentioned, just seeing that is so important. And that's why, too, now I work in the news. There was no contributors on air that were former law enforcement and former intelligence. Wow. And I was like, well, that were women. And I'm like, well, let's try this, right? Yes. And so the more and more people see it, but the one thing I've learned now working as an adjunct at a university is that it seems to me, especially the school I'm at, for some reason, it's probably about 60% women. More of them are actually interested in those careers than the males, which is kind of interesting.
Things are changing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's maybe because they're gravitating to me because I'm a female professor. That I don't know. But I get more questions about the path. It doesn't seem to be something that's like unattainable to them, which
that's great.
I think that's a great thing.
Yes. So Tracy, will you talk to us about overcoming being underestimated? Because that is something that, wow, in your book, it just seems like you kept coming up against these brick walls. Then you would feel like, not that you needed to prove yourself, but you would maybe even prove yourself to yourself on some internal level. And then there would be this new barrier, and you just kept going. Will you explain just what you felt, what you went through, what that was like for you?
Yeah, it's strange. I think as humans, right, when we see people, we size them up. Yeah. Right? Like, I think that's what we do. Sure. It's not right, but we do. We do it on like a subconscious level.
Sure.
And so I think because of exposures, at that time, when I started the CIA, the big movies would have been James Bond, right?
Yes.
And like, clearly I don't fit that mold. And so when your brain has like this really hard time, like switching that and navigating through that. And then I think it compounded too, I am girly and I like clothes and I like makeup, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so I think that added another layer of people being like, weight. And I think we sometimes conflate liking those things with having less than skills.
Yes.
And I think that's a huge problem because one doesn't negate the other, but you can also be a female and not like those things. You can be a male
Sure.
and like all of those things are perfectly fine. It's just for some reason as a society, we've conflated liking those things with an inability to have jobs in those positions. And it's frustrating.
That makes so much sense. And I love that you talk about, you just talked about being able to like those things or not like those things, because it is about being self-defined, and even you growing up, with floppy baby syndrome, you talked about that. That's something that, it sounded like such a big sentence, I think, for probably your parents, maybe even for you as a child. And you just redefined that too. It's like, so it's about, I feel like, us defining ourselves continuously.
Yeah.
Right? And if we believe in ourselves, then
That's such a
who's
good
to tell
point.
us otherwise?
That's such a good point. And I think my parents too, I mean, again, this was the 70s. So I think, gosh, not a lot of is even known about hypotonia today. There's still really nothing about it. And so I think even more so, right, in the 70s, you
Right.
didn't have like physical therapy. It just wasn't like a thing. And so I think my parents were like, all right, we have this. So like, let's just move on.
Yeah.
And I just never, I don't want to say wallowed, but I was never allowed to. That can be good or bad, right? Like depending on how we want to process
Be in touch with your
feelings.
emotions, but don't become a
Yes.
victim. It's a balance.
Yes.
How do we
There's
do it? I don't know.
a healthy balance
Sure.
that needs to be maintained.
Yes.
But I do credit them with basically saying, yes, you have this. You may not be the most athletic person in the room, but there's no reason you can't go and kick that ball, right? Like
Sure.
they never let it like hold me back. And I appreciated that.
Yeah. Again, like no limits, and you could define. Yes. So wonderful. And then when you were at the CIA, it was so different from when you were at the FBI. Will you share a little bit about that, and like how you
Yeah.
navigated both spaces?
So what I've come to find out, obviously hindsight's always 2020,
Sure.
right? And now that there's been some time, I'm able to kind of think about why it was so different. And I think part of it was naivete on
Which
my
can be
part.
a gift sometimes,
Yes.
right?
But I think there's a couple reasons. The first one was there is actually, we as a society look very differently at the gathering of intelligence, which is what the CIA does, versus kicking down doors law enforcement, which is what the FBI does. And so I think right there, it was different,
Sure.
right? But then I also think what I didn't count on and I should have counted on was the fact that at the time, the two really hated each other. And so you're
Wow.
coming from this organization. I worked with FBI agents actually when I was at CIA, and they were wonderful. I think it was just naivete on my part to realize that there were a lot of problems because in the wake of September 11th, they were blaming each other basically for what had happened. And I get it. But I thought that was like a high level issue, right? Like that wasn't something that was gonna like trickle down to us employees, but
Right.
it definitely did. And so you have coming from CIA, which they don't like anyways, right? And so you've got all these things kind of actually against you. And I didn't expect that. And that's my fault a little bit.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the Bart story was triggering for all of us.
Yes.
If you guys read the book, okay, if you haven't already. And if you haven't yet, you had to basically apologize to someone for wearing a suit that was too tight. And I love the narrative. We get to be like in your head as you're like,
Writing the letter
writing
with
something
the inappropriate language.
Yes, hilarious. I was laughing. And then you basically were just like, sorry, whatever. So it was inspiring to me to see how you continued to stay contained and you continued to make sure that you were self-defined. You didn't let them stop you. You talked about not being a victim, which I think is important. But then you made your own choices at the end of the day, and now you're a teacher, and you've just kind of changed your own to make your own needs, most important. So will you tell us about that transition then from FBI to now teaching?
Well, so I went to college to be a high school history teacher. That's what I wanted to do with my whole life. I just kind of took a detour, right?
Yes.
Like around
Before the
along
fair,
way.
and you gave your resume.
Took a little bit of a detour. And I think kind of what I learned about that was a lot of times we think about wanting to change these organizations. We think about like, let's start with the leadership. But what I realized is like, we actually need to start at the entry level. And so when I started to get into teaching history, I mean, that was my major, I started realizing like I should start exposing women like to these to try to change that gender narrative. And so that kind of took on like a purpose all on its own.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now with what you see, with what you share, like a lot of your Instagram, a lot of your social media is, keeping us abreast of world events. What are some tips for filtering media so that we can all stay in the loop, but not get sucked into some narratives that aren't correct?
And those narratives can be dangerous, right? Because they can lead to just a whole host of things.
Totally.
And that's kind of why I do what I do. Is I got sick of like the politicization of facts.
Yes.
If that makes any sense. And so that's why I decided to do these like 3-minute or less, like let's explain Syria or let's explain, and I don't, but people get mad at me because they're like, you need to take a side. And I'm like, but why do I need to take a side? I'm just giving you the fact. I have a side, of course, we all do.
Yes.
But like, I think we give the facts and let people do what they want in terms of the sides. I think with filtering information, because even if you look at, I guess, mainstream media, right, they have a bias too. But I always think the best thing to do is if you hear it from one person, that's great. Maybe it sparks an interest. But let's go ahead and see if we're hearing it from multiple people, and then start actually Googling the people's names that you're hearing these things from and find out who they are and what their motives are.
Having seen some of the worst things in this world, some true evil, when you were fighting terrorism, what is your advice and your mindset today when you see things that are concerning or different threats that people may become fearful of?
So I have to compartmentalize it.
Okay.
I know people say, oh, that's just the easy way out, like I shut it off, but I kind of have to. I mean,
Sure.
listen, I'm very open about it, but I have, diagnosed PTSD. I don't think that's surprising to anyone. You serve a tour in Afghanistan, like that's going to happen.
Seriously, based on everything you have seen, I think that's,
so with the news though, sometimes it can get difficult, right?
Sure.
Like on when we had the New Orleans attack, I was on for 10 hours that day, right? Because I do national security and crime. That's all I do.
Yeah.
And so that can start to get, a lot. And so I think we need to be aware of threats. I don't think burying our head in the sand is ever a good idea.
Right.
But we can't let them dictate our lives, if that makes sense, because the reality is that then they win, right?
Yes.
And you lose because you are losing out on good experiences in life. But I think also being aware, and if a situation doesn't feel safe, it might be worth it to just kind of take a step back from that situation and gain control over yourself and how you feel about it. I'm completely fine with that, but I think it can become dangerous when we just avoid everything because we're scared of what could happen. Your life will completely pass you by, and that's so unfortunate.
What else have you noticed when it comes to creating change? Because we talked about that a little bit earlier, like how creating change, it has to be done in a specific way, like you have to kind of get things at the root. You can't always go straight to the top to try to change things. How do you see that? Like, how do you see change happening over time? And what can people do if they're passionate about something and want to get involved?
Yeah, I think the root is what I think most of my life, I always thought it was, people at the top, people at the top, people at the top. Yep. That was just kind of what was always ingrained in me. And now teaching, I've realized that's not it. It's about getting more people into these careers. But I also think, too, sharing with them how to start. I know that sounds super basic, but I mean, gosh, I had a student just the fall semester, actually, of this year. She is an English major, and she's like, well, I think I want to work at the CIA, and they were coming to the school to recruit, and she's like, but why would they want me? And I was like, but why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And my motto to them is let them tell you no. Why are you starting out telling yourself no? That's so silly.
I love
and
that.
Guess what? They hired her. And so, well, she made it through the process, and now she's doing the background check. But I think that's the biggest thing is students, adults as well, put up these things about why we shouldn't and why we can't. But I think we need to start thinking about why we can and not be afraid of the word no. You're going to hear the word no. That's okay. You just move along.
That's amazing. Just move along. I like it. Keep going. Let them tell you no.
Yes.
I mean, that is a quotable right there. Oh my gosh, words to live by, everybody. So, Tracy, we are going to be going forth, letting people tell us no now after being so inspired by you. So do those things now, continue to keep you up at night, or how do you compartmentalize things? If you do start to get stressed, do you just do you try to think of something else or?
I work out a
Okay,
lot.
work out.
That is
Get the stress
Yeah,
off.
that's something that for me has always worked, and I know that
I can relate to that.
the audience might just think this is strange, but so obviously I'm on the news. I talk about all these events all the time. The last thing I want to do is watch it in my spare time, and so in my spare time, I watch Real Housewives of Everything.
I love this.
Or those kinds of things, and that doesn't like dumb me down. It's just my way of almost wiping my brain clean, so that I don't go down a kind of bridge to nowhere, if you will,
Yes.
in terms of worry. And so, because there's always going to be something to worry about, no matter what's going on in the world, who's in the White House, who's like all of those, there's always going to be something to worry about, whether it's personal level, all of those things. And so I think finding a way to like take a dry eraser to your brain
Yes.
is the best way to do that.
That is really such good advice, and you've just freed my spirit, because I am one of those people that I will get in my head. I'm like, should I be talking about this? I have like a podcast that's also pop culture and like astrology, and there will be times where I'm talking about something, and I'm also working on like an animal advocacy thing, and I feel guilty. I'm like, am I wasting? Should I really be doing this like pop culture thing? Like I should be focusing on this other thing all the time. And then you talked about Us Weekly in your book.
Yeah.
And immediately gave me permission. I was like, okay, well, if Tracy does it, then
But what's wrong with that?
I don't know. It's like a weird self-judgment thing.
Yes, and I think it's because of the societal norms that we put on people about like, if you have this job at the CIA or you care about the welfare of animals, that you can't have like some kind of an outlet
Right.
for that.
Right.
And as long as it's a healthy and safe outlet, I don't care what it is. Like you do you, whatever
like
you
that.
need.
Again, finding like the balance. And I believe you're a Libra.
Yes.
Right? Yes. See,
I
the
am.
balance.
What are
So is
you?
Michael a Libra. I'm a Virgo.
Okay, you're my mom.
Oh, your mom's a Virgo. Okay. So is his mom.
And so is my dad.
So you come from a Virgo family.
Yes.
Okay, you know us well.
Yes, I do.
Yes. Well, and I love Libras. You guys are amazing. And you have this charm and this elegance, but that's for the other podcast. So anyway, but Tracy, I love that you are really just giving other people permission through your example, showing that we can wear pink and makeup and heels and Louboutins and have fun, and also
Or not.
be amazing.
Yeah.
Or not. Or not.
Yeah, we
And
just
that's
stop
great
judging
too.
each other, I
Stop.
think.
Oh my gosh. And stop judging ourselves.
Yes.
That is a Virgo thing, I will say.
Yes.
But that is such a beautiful message. And I think it's one that is really needed right now because, yeah, we need people getting involved and feeling confident enough to be told no. I think that would be really great for all of us in this world.
No isn't personal. It really isn't. It's just that you're maybe not the right fit for that thing at that time. And that's okay.
Love it.
Go ahead.
Okay, so now that it's summer, this is kind of a practical question.
Okay.
We're going to be traveling, and some people even travel alone and want to feel safe. We need to feel secure. And I mean, I feel like if anybody would have tips, it's you. So are there any things that we should just kind of be aware of while we're traveling?
Yeah, so that's a big passion of mine. What's interesting is when I started on my social media journey, all these influencers kept coming up in my face about like safety, but they had like 85 million toys and like, just like that they were locking up hotel rooms with like 50 locks. And
I've seen these videos.
And I was just like,
I've thought about getting some of these things. I'm like,
but
does
they
this
don't
work?
And it's okay if they don't have a background. I don't really judge that, but sometimes I worry an overkill on that is feeding into people's fears and insecurities, right? And not everyone has the means to purchase all of these things. And so when I was at CIA and FBI, it was very simple, right? Like the safety. And so my big passion is to like break it down simply, like, and so I think the biggest thing and I've done a couple videos on this, when you travel overseas, whether you're alone or not, and you have your phone, is there is an app that will tell you what the 911 is in that country, because 911 is obviously not 911 in France. And so I think we need to like start there, right?
Amazing.
Like in terms of that. The other thing to do is also go to the State Department's website and see what travel warnings they have. It's always there all the time. They tell you the threat level. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't go, but I think it's good to know, what's going on in that country.
So in the documentary where we learn all about what you did, fighting terror, tracking Osama Bin Laden, and one of the most exciting things I learned was how many women were on your team. Yeah. Will you share that? That's something that I just had no idea.
It was mostly women, especially pre 9/11. I used to say, like, everyone didn't understand why I wanted to work in the CTC, or the Counterterrorism Center, because all the cool kids were in like the Russia branch or the Latin American division, because there was just a lot going on in those areas. And so it was an area that wasn't popular. And so a lot of women, that was what they were doing.
Wow.
And so it was really cool. I would actually argue it was probably 60-70% women.
Wow. Okay. Well, that was just really wonderful to see. Talk about representation.
Yes.
Well, Tracy, thank you for everything you've done for our country, everything that you've done to inspire women and just people across the board. You've given us so much to just inspire us, and I'm excited to continue to follow everything that you share. So where can people find you and keep up with you?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a total pleasure. So The Unexpected Spy on Instagram or TikTok, and then News Nation. I'm the national security contributor there.
So exciting. Okay. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Brit.
So I'm here with Daniela Bell, the owner of Daniela Bell Beauty and a celebrity makeup artist that we all love here in Dallas. Daniela, thank you for joining us.
So happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, I am so excited that you're here because I just walked through the Texas heat and my makeup started sliding off. So we need your help for summer beauty.
I got you.
Please give us your top
I'll
tips.
give you a few tips.
I know you're going to help us. So first of all, when it comes to that, let's start there. When the makeup's sliding off, when you're sweating, what do you do? Can we touch up throughout the day? Is it going to get cakey? Like, how do we
You have
survive?
to be very smooth about touching up after you're sweating, of course.
Okay.
So
Yes.
the most important thing, and I think what I will suggest you will be for you to prep your skin before you come out in the heat, right? So like
Okay.
the things that you will do before you actually know that you're going to be in excruciating heat.
Okay.
Yes.
Excruciating.
Yeah, like I will say if you will use a translucent powder,
Okay.
and right now there's this big trend going on about this filter. Instead of using your Instagram filter or the Paris filter, right? That famous that we all put in there.
Yes.
So basically you do that with a translucent powder and you just add it. After you're done with your full entire makeup, you just take a little bit of translucent powder and you just dust it all over your face.
Okay.
And that will make it look more of like a just like a porcelain doll kind of finished look on the skin, right?
Okay.
So if you do that trick and then you spray your setting spray, which
Love it.
I'll talk to you about this product more, but if you spray that after, then you're like completely good for war and you can go out there.
Good
in the
for
heat
war.
and then
Which is pretty much what this
and
heat
then-
is. Let's be
Yes,
honest, guys.
basically. So it's just
Okay.
prepping it before. I think it's just smarter to do it that way and taking a little bit longer, 2 seconds more of your makeup routine prior coming out in the heat, because otherwise once you're already sweating and stuff, it's a little bit harder to touch up without it being cakey or crazy or something.
For
like
sure.
that.
So you just have to like start
So
over,
preventing.
Okay, preventing it. I love it. So will you break down some of these products for us?
Yes.
So first of all, I recognize this. I have these at
Yes.
home. These are Daniela Bell's tools. You
Yes.
have a whole set that people
It's
can
a-
check out. Love these. They're amazing. So use this. And then what kind of powder is this?
So this is actually a Givenchy powder, but you can do
Ooh,
any
hello.
powder, any translucent powder. Don't feel like you have to be too fancy on this. I like this one because it has kind of like a combination of shades, and you can
Yes, I
use
see
it
that.
just to kind of give you that filter. Really, it doesn't have color, even though it looks like it has a little color. It doesn't really have color. It's more of a translucent with no color. There's translucent powders that have a hint of something. This one says that it does, but it really doesn't do anything to like it doesn't have any color. So
Okay.
just make sure it's a translucent powder, colorless.
Colorless.
And
okay.
that's what you will use. And that
For
will
the
help.
filter.
Yeah, that will just make it look so just like smooth and porcelain.
Okay. Love that.
But definitely get you a good tool.
Yes.
We're talking about the brushes, and I do think that the brush is very important because sometimes when you use a brush that's too, let's just say if I was to use like a flatter brush, right? Of course, this is a smaller size, but if you had a bigger that's flatter, that's not gonna work. It's
Okay.
not really going to dust off the powder. It's just gonna press too much powder and be too much on the face, right?
Okay.
So dusting, taking off some, you can do it on your hand and just kind of swirl it and then tap out the excess and then just kind of dab. That's a good way to do it. But
Okay, so it's
your
light
tools are important.
layers, very light touch in the
Correct.
summer especially, and then using a great tool. So
Yeah.
will you tell us about these? Because I love these. I actually used your tool set this morning when I got ready.
Yes. I have, so it's my essential brush kit, and I love it because, brush set, sorry. It's amazing because it's just brushes that you can use for creams, liquids, and powders. So
Love it. And you also gave us a tiny little bit of a preview that you have some new products coming out.
Yes.
Can you like spill it a little bit or should we just wait?
no, we'll spill it.
Okay,
We'll
we're gonna
spill
get
it
the
only
tea.
here. I
Yes.
won't talk about it anywhere
Exclusive.
else. Yeah, exclusive. I actually designed some clusters
Okay.
that are the most beautiful lashes. Like there's so many in the market right now, but these ones that I designed are just perfect. They look literally just like your lashes. You could never tell that you're wearing falsies. They're easy to put on because these little clusters, you can do whatever you want with them.
You can customize them.
Yeah, you can customize. You can go smaller or you can go longer in the lashes, however you want. And then the cool thing is that it has already the glue on it, so they're already pre-glued for you.
Love it.
So all you do is you take the little cluster and you apply them underneath the lashes, so you don't put them above, which disguises the lashes even more because you know when we look down, sometimes you can tell
you can see
the
them.
band.
Yeah.
And with this, it's definitely super seamless. So you just
Love
apply them at the bottom, and you can do just the little corners or a full strip if you want, or do 2 little clusters like on top of each other, and then you give them more volume. So you really can go and play with those, and they're just so cool.
Full customization.
Exactly.
Okay, well, Daniela, where can we buy these products, or can we follow you? And if people do want to book you to do their makeup for their celebrity glam moment, how can they get in touch? Give us all the info.
So you guys can buy the lashes online and also at Stanley Korshak in Dallas. You can also come to the studio. We work by appointment, so you can follow us on Instagram, all the social media. You can book that way.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you, Daniela. I feel more prepared for summer. And I know everyone else does too. There's always something happening at Dallas Animal Services, and this summer, they're hosting a variety of events to help you connect with adoptable pets, lend a hand, or simply do something uplifting. To see the full lineup of summer events, visit the events page on the DAS website by scanning the QR code on screen. And as always, adoptions are free at Dallas Animal Services. Every pet comes spayed or neutered, microchipped, and up to date on vaccinations. If you're not in a place to adopt right now, you can still help. DAS is at full capacity and needs your support to get the word out. Scanning this QR code will take you to the Facebook page where you'll find urgent pets that need fosters or adopters. You can share these pets in critical need on your social media and with friends and family. It only takes a moment, and you'd be amazed how many animals find forever homes with the help of members of our community, simply spreading the word about them. Your share could be the reason a dog or cat gets adopted, and that's a pretty powerful act of kindness. If you're interested in fostering, the QR code on screen will take you to the DAS foster page. Same-day fostering is available. That wraps up this episode of Be Zen with Brit. Thank you so much for spending time with me. We'll be taking a short summer hiatus to soak up the sun, but don't worry because we'll be back September 4th with an all-new episode. Set that DVR so you don't miss it. In the meantime, come hang out with me over on Instagram at BZenTV, where I'll be sharing some behind-the-scenes moments and my summer travels. And if you'd like to catch up on past episodes, Be Zen with Brit is now available to stream anytime on Spotify. Wishing you a joyful, relaxing summer, and I can't wait to see you in the fall. If you love astrology, pop culture tea, and decoding the cosmic drama behind your favorite celebrity headlines, you'll love my podcast, In the Cards and Stars. Every week, I dive deep into birth charts and tarot spreads to unpack the biggest moments in pop culture. So whether you're a seasoned stargazer or just astro-curious, come join the fun. You can listen to In the Cards and Stars now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or catch weekly live streams on the Brit Madrid YouTube channel.